of NATO now reaching interim operational capability in Europe at the end of May, that promise has been shattered. The Russian Federation has fulfilled all terms of the agreement, and even more, I shut down not only the Cuban lords, but also Comron in Vietnam. I shut them down because I gave my word of honor. I, like a man, have kept my word. What have the Americans done? The Americans are not responsible for their own words. It is no secret that in recent years, the U.S. created a buffer zone around Russia, involving in this process not only the countries of Central Europe, but also the Baltic states, Ukraine, and the Caucasus. The only response to this could be an asymmetric expansion of the Russian military presence abroad, particularly in Cuba. The report quotes Putin as saying, with the full consent of the Cuban leadership, on May 11th of this year, our country has not only resumed work in the Electronic Center of Lords, but also placed the latest mobile strategic nuclear missiles, OAK, on the island. They did not want to do it the amicable way. Now let them deal with this, added Putin, unquote. Well, my friends, there you are. You've heard about the Russian missile crisis, right? The Cuban Missile Crisis back in 1961 that President Kennedy handled oh so deftly. You remember that? It was in all the papers. They made a movie out of it. Well, if this report is true, then that means we've got ourselves another Cuban Missile Crisis, haven't we? I seem to recall from watching that movie that the missiles in Cuba would only take a few minutes to reach Florida. So now, if this report is true, and I'm telling you the only thing I know about is what I read, what I just read you, if the report is true, welcome to Israel. That's right. Welcome to Israel. With the creation of a Palestinian state, Israel would have a knife at its throat. It would be only 7 or 8 miles wide in the center, undefensible, and the missiles would be only minutes from major population centers in Israel. Now, a lot of people in Israel, here in America, they don't care about Israel. Who cares? If they have security problems, that's their worry. Welcome to Israel. If there truly are Russian nukes in Cuba, well, then we've got a little problem, haven't we? Then that means that any moment, day or night, we could conceivably, God forbid, be only 2 or 3 or 5 or 6 minutes from mushroom clouds. Now, this is a pretty dramatic statement. I don't know, as I've said twice already, I don't know if it's true. Might be true. If it is, then the entire world has just changed again. Remember what the great Rav Ula said in the Talmud about the end of days when the Messiah would come. Rav Ula said, may the Messiah come quickly, and may I not be here to see it. Item from MediaBistro.com. Americans purchased more books considered to be conservative than liberal, according to Amazon's new election heat map 2012. According to the map, which is updated daily, 56% of books purchased are considered red, as in red states, while 44% of political books purchased are considered blue. The top-selling red books include The Amateur by Edward Klein, Fool Me Twice, Obama's Plans for the Next 4 Years Exposed by Aaron Klein and Brenda Elliott, and Killing Lincoln, The Shocking Assassination That Changed America Forever by Martin Dugard and Bill O'Reilly. The top-selling blue books include The People's History of the United States by Howard Zinn, The New Deal by Michael Grunwald, and The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander and Cornel West. Amazon explains the map with this blurb, quote, Election Day is November 6, 2012. We hope this map will provide you with a novel way to follow the political conversation this election season. Just remember, books aren't votes. So a map of book purchases may reflect curiosity as much as commitment, unquote. My friends, I would not take this as any kind of prognostication about which way the election's going to go. I would say this. Anytime people read books, it's a good thing if it's the right book. Don't forget, you can go to most countries and get a copy of the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, which is an anti-Semitic forgery that dates back to Russia. You can get that pretty good. People read that book. But it's the wrong people reading, and it's the wrong book to read. If people are reading liberal books, that's not so good. It's not so good, because liberal policies have marooned us. If people are reading conservative books, great. Do this. Add to that, reading some conservative blogs, listening to guys like Limbaugh and Hannity, reading Ann Coulter, all good stuff. All stuff we need to know, and I left out listening to Real Truth. We'll be right back after this break.
And of his fullness we have all received, and grace for grace. For the law was given through Moses, but grace and truth came through Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus the Christ. No one has seen God at any time. The only begotten Son, who is in the bosom of the Father, He has declared him. The Gospel of John, chapter 1, verse 16.
No state shall enter into any treaty, alliance, or confederation, grant letters of marque or reprisal, coin money, emit bills of credit, make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debts, pass any bill of attainder, ex post facto law, or law impairing the obligation of contracts, or grant any title of nobility. Article 1, Section 10.
CINN Stations in Alt salutes our troops. Whether you're for the war or against it, they're still there. These men and women deserve more than our support. They deserve the comfort of home. Send a military care package today. Just type military care package into a search engine. Point and click. Let's show our troops we care. This message from CINN Stations in Alt, wishing Godspeed to our fighting men and women and thanking them for their triumphs and their sacrifices. The Beth Messiah Congregation invites you to come and experience a Messianic Roots biblically based congregational fellowship as we observe God's Shabbat in Messiah Yeshua. Praise and worship services begin at 10:30 a.m., followed by an Oneg Shabbat meal mid-Rosh and fellowship. Beth Messiah Congregation is located at 8333 Acoma Way in North Denver. You can find out more information by calling 1-800-205-6245. Everyone's welcome, so join us this Shabbat. And Shabbat Shalom, good Sabbath.
Folks, welcome back to Real Truth. You know I'm a big fan of Judge Andrew Napolitano. Well, he's a very, very bright guy. Here he is turning his intellect towards answering the question, is government shrinkable or not? We all know that we need a smaller government. Is it possible? Here he is appearing on Fox and Friends. Let's listen.
President Obama's former top economic advisor, Larry Summers, says there's no real way to shrink the government and says, in fact, it really needs to get bigger.
What? Is this true? Fox News senior judicial analyst Judge Andrew Napolitano. Sorry, that was my genuine reaction. What? But isn't this all on ideological lines?
Yeah, it is on ideological lines. And, of course, Larry Summers is the former president of Harvard, the former secretary of the Treasury, the former chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors. So he can't hold a job. He can't hold a job. Good, Brian. From his point of view, if the government continues to provide entitlements to the same number of people as it does today, under the same circumstances, then he's right. You can't shrink it. But if you listen to what Paul Ryan is saying, for those under 55, they should have a free market alternative. If they don't have a free market alternative, then the government's debt by the end of the next president's term could be $20 trillion. That would be utterly unsustainable because the interest on that debt would be $1 trillion a year. The government only collects $2.5 trillion a year in taxes. So more than a third of that is going to go to debt service. That doesn't leave enough money to run the government, and no one will lend more money to the government because they fear they're not going to get paid back.
Sure. So Larry Summers, who helped the president with the stimulus, and he was one of his economic gurus, so the president listened to him.
Who was quite frustrated, evidently.
Yes, he was. Absolutely.
Yes, he was.
He's saying the government is unshrinkable, and really that sets up what this November election is all about.
It absolutely.
With Paul Ryan there, who hopes to make some smart choices to save some things, we might actually make the big government more effective.
Yesterday I was talking to my wonderful mother. I will not tell you her age, but she and my father are at an age where They're taking advantage of Medicare. She said, Andrew, is Paul Ryan going to cut our Medicare? I said, Ma, you are nowhere near 55. The Ryan proposal, I'm older than 55. The Ryan proposal only applies to those 55 and under. But here's the thing. When Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid were challenged in the Supreme Court said they're optional. The government does not have to pay that money. The government is not holding your money for you, as FDR promised.
Well, see,
Congress can spend it or not spend it.
But I don't get that because it's a deal. We paid into it. There's an expectation that it'll be
correct. It's a moral deal, right? It's not a legal obligation on the part of the Congress. So the Republicans say, let's offer a younger generation another option, one that would allow them to invest their own money and save the government cash.
Well, where's the messaging gone wrong in that? Because is it just that it's much easier to say they're going to throw Grandma off the cliff?
Yes, I was just going to say that. Granny over the cliff, which was horrific but brilliant, has blurred the message and has scared otherwise decent people into fearing that the government saving money is going to take money away from them.
And that's really a play on Throw Mama from the Train, the Billy Crystal movie.
You know who understood all of this? Phyllis Diller. I talked to her last week.
Really did. Hey, and by the way, since when did your mom call you Andrew? I thought you made her call you Judge.
When he's in trouble. I changed it 2 years.
You did? Okay.
I was going to say how wonderful that your parents are still with you.
All right, we don't need the comedy. The point is this. Is government shrinkable? If you are, this is going to sound like I'm trying to be funny, I'm not. If your political viewpoint is that the government should be smaller, then you can do it. It's going to take some painful cuts. Grown-ups can make decisions like that. If you're on the Democratic side of the aisle, well, chances are you think like a child. Child never wants to take medicine, never wants to eat its vegetables. So children get sick, and they need the parents to come to their rescue. Item from the Daily Mail, from telling us when our train is coming, helping us when we're lost, and letting us watch our favorite TV shows, there seems to be no limit to how involved our smartphone is with our day-to-day life. Now the gadget promises something so advanced it verges on the supernatural. It will know exactly what we're doing tomorrow. Scientists have found a way of predicting an individual's future movements by analyzing information in their mobile phone. A team of computer scientists at the University of Birmingham in England successfully predicted future locations with an error margin of just 60 feet, which has fueled fears of privacy invasions. While mobile phone networks can already track where a handset is in real time, the scientists have developed an algorithm, a formula, to forecast our future movements, unquote. My friends, if it sounds like science fiction to you, it may still be science fiction, but the fact that there are people working on this is what should scare the piss out of you. Item from GodfatherPolitics.com. Both Barack Obama and Joe Biden keep hammering Mitt Romney for outsourcing jobs overseas. Just yesterday, I saw another Obama commercial that mentioned Romney's career at Bain Capital and how so many people lost their jobs when he sent jobs to other countries. Biden mentioned Romney's outsourcing when speaking recently in North Carolina and Virginia. At the same time, Biden criticizes Romney for sending jobs overseas. Biden's close friend and campaign donor, John Hinansky, secured a taxpayer-funded loan of up to $20 million to open a luxury car dealership in the Ukraine. Yes, that's right, the Ukraine. And since it's a taxpayer-based loan, that means you and I are basically the co-signers for a loan. And if Hinansky defaults on the loan, you and I are going to have to pay it off with our tax dollars. So ask yourself, how many people in the Ukraine are going to be able to afford Porsches, Land Rovers, and Jaguars? Unquote. Item from International Israel News Nation. Hello? Take time out. Israel National News. Honor killings, essentially legal murder because of loopholes in Palestinian Authority law, have sharply risen in the Palestinian Authority, along with more U.S. aid designed to support strong institutions of the PA. The Palestinian Independent Commission for Human Rights has reported 29 women were killed over a 4-year period ending in 2010, but nearly the same number were murdered in the past year and a half. Honor killings, often carried out in a primitive fashion, took the lives of 13 women in 2011 and 12 in the first 7 months of 2012. a reporter at the State Department asked if the United States funds the Palestinian Authority on condition of judicial process, while, quote, there's a loophole in the law that basically allows the killers to go free, and also asked, do you ever link it to such things? The U.S. State Department spokesperson Olivia Newland replied, this money is designed to support strong institutions of the Palestinian Authority, democratic institutions, increasing their services to the Palestinian people. Front Page Magazine wrote on Monday, a growing collection of Palestinian leaders were acknowledging that the recent rise in honor killings and other horrific acts of violence being perpetrated against Palestinian women can only be stemmed by changing the Arab cultural and Islamic propensity of violence towards women. The latest victim was murdered by her husband after she left a divorce hearing in Bethlehem. She had said that she'd suffered beatings that forced her to be hospitalized. The husband never was charged with a crime. Another honor-killing murder involved a 17-year-old girl whose mother suffocated her with a plastic bag over her face and slashed her wrists. Her crime was being raped and being impregnated by her two brothers. One of the most publicized cases was last year's discovery of a savage murderer whose uncle tied her up and threw her into a well because he did not approve of an intended marriage, unquote. My friends, I'm not going to ask you why the hell we should be sending money to a bunch of savages. The Palestinians enjoy honor killing, and that's their thing. My question is this: what honor? Item from USA Stands with Israel. Some 50 descendants of Nazi SS and Wehrmacht officers will be taking part in a reconciliation march with Holocaust survivors through Poland's extermination camps. Their relatives massacred the Jews, and now they're marching together with Holocaust survivors to commemorate the tragedy. Over 50 members of the German delegation are descendants of members of Wehrmacht, police or SS, who were directly involved in the annihilation of Europe's Jews. They'll join together with the survivors in a reconciliation march that will make stops at Poland's extermination camps. The 420 participants met Monday at the Auschwitz-Birkenau extermination camp, the starting point of the march, which will go through Treblinka, Kielce, Warsaw, Sobibor, Chelmno, Majdanek, and Belzec. A memorial ceremony will be held at each of the sites. The idea to hold the event was raised last year during a convention in honor of the aid offered by evangelical Christian groups to Holocaust victims. Deputy Speaker of the Knesset, Leah Shemtov, who was behind the Knesset convention, will be representing Israel in the march. The main ceremony will take place in Warsaw on Thursday. Knesset member Shemtov said she was very excited to be the keynote speaker at the event. Quote, these are incredible teenagers who discovered their tragic connection with the Jewish people and decided to follow this truth while seeking forgiveness and absolution from Holocaust survivors, she noted. In her speech, Shemtov will state, quote, they say that children should not bear their parents' sins as a mark of Cain. Sadly, the memory of the acts of the Holocaust haunts you even now, when you, the next generation, are exposed to the rising anti-Semitism in Europe, radical Islam's burning hatred, and you young men and women who are the same age as the 1.5 million children who were slaughtered in the Holocaust say no more, unquote. My friends, I present so much bad news on this show. An item like this makes me wonder whether good things are really happening. Are they? Well, at least in this one case, the answer is yes. Item from Bloomberg Business Week. Headline, the real reason America's schools stink. I quote, the average kid in the U.S. does less than 1 hour of homework on average at all grade levels, according to a study from a few years ago by RAND and the Brookings Institution. A recent Council on Foreign Relations task force on education reform and national security, led by former Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice and Joel Klein, former head of New York City Public Schools, concluded that the country's, quote, educational failure puts the United States' future economic prosperity, global position, and physical safety at risk. There's no question that we'll skip past that. So where's the group in the U.S. that could try harder? Is it the teachers, more concerned with their tenure and pension rights than actually teaching kids? Is it miserly federal and state lawmakers starving their educators of resources? Or maybe it's the lackadaisical students, too addicted to questing with their avatar through World of Warcraft to think about algebra. The answer, it turns out, is none of the above. If there's a crisis in U.S. education, the fault lies with a group more accustomed to leveling blame than to receiving it. Parents. Around the world, the catch-all measure used to proxy for parental commitment to education is the number of books in a child's household. This measure predicts student educational outcomes better than class sizes or expenditures per student. The length of the school day or better class monitoring. These two researchers found that among 27 rich countries, the United States sees one of the strongest relationships between parental book ownership and child learning outcomes. In the U.S., kids from homes where there are more than 2 full bookcases score 2.5 grade levels higher than kids from homes with very few books. The culture needs to shift. All too many parents, all too often based on bitter experience, don't believe they can make a difference in the quality of their local school or their kids' education. For testing, accountability, and preschool access reforms to make a real difference, that belief has to change, which is no easy trick. But surely the first step is to ensure that when parents do try, they can succeed. Schooling in America isn't an insoluble mess. If anything, it may be on the way up. And if parents are given the tools, they can make it stronger, unquote. Books, my friends. Turn off the televisions, buy some good books, let your kids see you reading them, and the kids will follow suit. Item from WorldNet Daily economist Thomas Sowell. There have been many wise warnings that freedom is seldom lost all at once. It's usually eroded away bit by bit until it's all gone. You may not notice a gradual erosion while it's going on, but you may eventually be shocked to discover one day that it's all gone, that we've been reduced from citizens to subjects, and the Constitution has become just a meaningless bunch of paper. Obamacare imposes huge costs on some institutions, while the president's arbitrary waivers exempt other institutions from having to pay those same costs. If Obama gets reelected, he knows he need no longer worry about what the voters think about anything he does. Never having to face them again, he can take his arbitrary rule by decree as far as he wants. He may be challenged in the courts, but if he gets just one more Supreme Court appointment, he can pick someone who will rubber stamp anything he does and give him a 5-4 majority. John Stuart Mill explained the dangers in that kind of government long ago. A government with all this mass of favors to give or withhold. I won't even finish that quote, my friend. Find it on my Facebook page and call me and read it to me. We'll be back.
Just a good old boy.
Hi, I'm Eric Cedarstrom. For over a decade, I've been the CEO, shipping clerk, and janitor of the Patriot Trading Group. And in that time, I've made friends with tens of thousands of like-minded individuals all over this country, most like me, trying to raise a family, run a business, and make sense out of a world gone mad. I'm proud of the fact that through stock bubbles, housing bubbles, and financial chaos, our customers are prospering and doing very well. By keeping our prices fair and our service fast, we find that 80% of our customers not only reorder, but they tell their friends. Don't be fooled by hype and high pressure. Do business with a company you can trust. Call the Patriot Trading Group at 1-800-951-0592 or check out our website at allamericangold.com. You'll be treated with honesty and respect. You have my word on it. I'm Eric Cedarstrom, CEO, shipping clerk, and janitor.
Making their way the only way they know how.
He was in the world, and the world was made through him, and the world did not know him. He came to his own, and his own did not receive him. But as many as received him, to them he gave the right to become children of God, to those who believe in his name, who were born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God. The Gospel of John, chapter 1, verse 10 through 13. Article 4. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall be issued but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the places to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. Restore Health and Counseling salutes the men and women in uniform who've answered the call for our freedoms. Let's give them the hero's welcome they deserve as they have fought hard to restore peace. America's troops are our angels of protection, so stand up and salute them proudly. That's from Restore Health and Counseling at 4705 Paris Street, serving Northeast Denver with complete substance abuse counseling for adolescent to adult and for private as well as professional drug, alcohol screening and treatment and rehabilitation. Visit us at www.rhctherapy.com or call 303-373-1188. CINN Stations in Alt salutes our troops. Whether you're for the war or against it, they're still there. These men and women deserve more than our support. They deserve the comfort of home. Send a military care package today. Just type military care package into a search engine, point, and click. Let's show our troops we care. This message from CINN Stations in Alt, wishing Godspeed to our fighting men and women and thanking them for their triumphs and their sacrifices.
My friends, welcome back to Real Truth. If you are a train commuter in New York City, chances are you've seen a disgusting billboard ad up there in which the Israelis are blamed for the fate of the poor Palestinian Nazis. Well, here's a report from NBC News in New York about the bulletin board, about the ad, with a word from a hero by the name of Geller. Let's listen.
From Studio 3C in Rockefeller Center, this is News for New York.
A group that once led the fight against building an Islamic cultural center near the World Trade Center site of Manhattan is generating controversy again, this time with a billboard posted at the Metro-North station that many commuters are calling hateful and wrong. News 4's Jonathan Vigliotti has more.
It's a controversial greeting for the thousands who each day get on and off the Metro-North Harlem line.
It seems out of place. It is hateful.
I think it's no good. It's no good.
The startling ads are the latest shot from the American Freedom Defense Initiative, a controversial group that first made headlines in New York for its fights against the so-called Ground Zero Mosque project. The Metro-North line has become the group.
My friend, let me yank this and let's do a different item here. We'll play that one at another time. Question. I have a question for you. Are you a libertarian? Do you even know what a libertarian is or what a libertarian believes in? Well, here's a funny thing. You may already be a libertarian and not know it. Let's listen.
If you'd rather rebuild roads, schools, bridges, and hospitals here at home instead of building them for others halfway around the world, you're a libertarian. If you're the kind of person who talks about ending warfare and welfare in the same sentence, you're a libertarian. If you think your body, your love life, and your private business are no business of the federal government, you're libertarian. If you'd rather die than give another vote to the bloated Constitution trampling, overtaxing, and overspending members of both failed political parties, hate to break it to you, you're not Democrat or Republican, you are libertarian. This year, you don't have to be a libertarian to vote libertarian. We're not a party. We're the people.
My name is Gary Johnson. Be libertarian with me for one election. Live free.
Now, here's the funny thing about Gary Johnson. It's not funny about him. It's funny about what people say about Gary Johnson. They say he's boring. They say he's bland. My question is, what the hell is the difference? What his personality type is. Look at what he stands for. Look at his policies. Look what he wants to accomplish. And then judge. Now, realistically, are there going to be enough Americans voting for Gary Johnson to make him president? I really don't think so. And that's what's wrong with this country. We always vote for chocolate or vanilla, Republican or Democrat. There's always a two-party selection process. What about a third-party candidate? What about a candidate who wants to shrink the government, who wants to adhere to the Constitution? But not enough people are thinkers. People react reflexively. I'm not a Democrat, I'm a Republican. I'm not a Republican, I'm a Democrat. They don't look to see what the hell the Republicans and Democrats are doing. In 2 days, I'm going to have Michael Snyder on the show. Last week, I read you the piece that he posted on economic collapse. 40 different ways in which Obama and Romney are essentially the same candidate. You know, it's a famous saying that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing again and again and again, but expecting a different result. Well, I am not insane, my friends, and you're not either. We keep electing Democrats and Republicans, we're going to get what we've been getting. I was hoping Ron Paul would be the game changer, and from what I'm reading on the internet, he still may be the game changer. Who the hell knows what's going to be happening at the Republican National Convention in Tampa? I do know it's a shame that the major networks are not talking about Gary Johnson. It's a shame that more Americans are not talking about Gary Johnson. He wants to do what we want a president to do. But, like I said, we're not a nation, in good part, not completely, but we're not a nation in good part of thinkers. We're reactors. We react. You know what happens to reactors? They explode. Item from the Chicago Tribune, Reuters reporting. A federal appeals court ruled on Monday that Alabama and Georgia could enforce key aspects of their law against illegal immigration that allow police to check the status of criminal suspects. The decisions were in line with the U.S. Supreme Court ruling on a similar Arizona law. But the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 11th Circuit in Atlanta continued to block other parts of the two southern states' laws, which have been challenged by the federal government and civil rights groups. Unquote. My friends, we have a problem with illegal aliens. Here's a secret. They're Mexicans. These are not people arriving from Holland, not people arriving from France. They're not people arriving from Tunisia. They're people arriving from Mexico. And so if police suspect someone may be an illegal immigrant, and the guy's Mexican, explain to me the part that's racist. If I go to a doctor because my foot hurts, should he treat my arm just so as not to show preference to my foot? Huh? We got too many illegal Mexicans in the country. It may not be PC to say it, but it's true. And so, you're damn right, I want cops checking the papers of people who are Mexican, especially if they live near the border. Now, how this got to Alabama and Georgia, I'm not exactly sure. But Arizona, Texas, California, New Mexico, you bet. I want Mexicans showing me their papers. And when illegal immigrants cease to be a problem, then we can stop looking at their papers. But right now it's a problem that's strangling us, one of many. Item from WorldTruth.tv. In a frightening example of how the state is tightening its grip around the free internet, it has emerged that YouTube is complying with thousands of requests from governments to censor and remove videos that show protests and other examples of citizens simply asserting their rights, while also deleting search terms by government mandate. The latest example is YouTube's compliance with a request from the British government to censor footage of the British Constitution group Lawful Rebellion protest, during which they attempted to civilly arrest Judge Michael Peake at Birkenhead County Court. Peake was ruling on a case involving Roger Hayes, former member of UKIP, who has refused to pay council tax, both as a protest against the government's treasonous activities and sacrificing Britain to globalist interests, and as a result of Hayes clearly proving that council tax is illegal. Hayes has embarked on an effort to legally prove that the enforced collection of council tax by government is unlawful because no contract has been agreed between the individual and the state. His argument is based on the sound legal principle that just like the council, Hayes can represent himself as a third party in court, and that Roger Hayes is a corporation and must be treated as one in the eyes of the law, unquote. Whatever happens to Roger Hayes, my friends, the precedent is being set for governments to tell YouTube what it may and may not broadcast, and is terribly dangerous. Item from the dailybell.com, Dr. Ron Paul writing. He writes the following: the American people should reject the hype about so-called defense cuts from both sides of the political spectrum. When the Obama administration calls for an 18% increase in 2013 military spending, those who propose a 20% increase portray this as a reduction. Even the supposedly draconian cuts called for in the sequestration budget bill would keep military spending at 2006 levels when adjusted for inflation, which is about as high in terms of GDP as during World War II. More when we come back.
Whether you're in automotive, sporting goods, hardware, health, wellness, electrical, electronics, construction, carpet cleaning, legal, or animal care, and offer exceptional customer service and provide quality services or goods, you're honest, reliable, and professional. If you have a business, we have the customers. Let us put you in touch with our loyal, supportive, and dedicated listeners today. They're waiting to hear from you. It's inexpensive. It's effective. Call KHNC at 1-800-205-6245.
If the IRS has turned your life upside down, Ameristar Tax Centers has a free, no-obligation consultation just for you. With proven experience, our former IRS agents are licensed to contact the IRS immediately for you, stop the collection activity, and get you instant help to relieve you from this burden. We guarantee not to charge you a penny unless we can help. So call for free information now.
800-519-6297. 800-519-6297. 800-519-6297.
He was in the world, and the world was made through him, and the world did not know him. He came to his own, and his own did not receive him. But as many as received him, to them he gave the right to become children of God, to those who believe in his name, who were born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God. The Gospel of John, chapter 1, verse 10 through 13. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America.
Welcome back to Real Truth. Howard Riell, your humble host. I have talked many times on this show, my friends, about absolutely brainless decisions that school boards across the country regularly make, especially zero-tolerance decisions. Well, we got another one. Here's a student, valedictorian, mind you, who is not going to be allowed to have her diploma because she said the word hell. You heard me. Let's listen.
Denied a diploma over a four-letter word, and Oklahoma High School is withholding the valedictorian's diploma because of a word she used in her graduation speech.
And tonight, some are calling the decision just ridiculous. Michael Konopasek has been following the story, and Michael, this has a lot of people talking.
That's right. Well, the word is hell. The FCC allows me to say it on TV, and it's commonly said in church, but saying hell in the presence of the Prague High School principal apparently crosses the line. It's not hell, but it is home to the Red Devils.
The word hell and devil kind of go together.
Some irony to a story about a small word kicking up some big drama.
It makes me very upset.
David Newbar's daughter is valedictorian at Prague. He says little did she know that one word in her graduation speech would have jeopardized the very acknowledgement of all she's worked for.
It seems excessive to punish her by not giving her her diploma.
In 18-year-old Caitlin Newbar's speech, she quoted the movie Twilight. Here it is in her own words.
They ask us now what we want to be, and we say, who the hell knows?
Caitlin says after the ceremony, the entire summer went by without a word from the administration, until the day Caitlin and her father went to pick up the diploma from Principal David Smith.
And he points at her and he said, you and I have a problem. Here's your diploma, but you can't have it.
And the only way to get the diploma was to write an apology.
If I was to write an apology letter, that would be me giving in to his demands.
We called Prague High School, but we caught hell. The woman who answered actually hung up on us. Instead, Superintendent Rick Martin released a statement saying the principal's request for an apology was reasonable.
Can't imagine withholding a diploma for a reason like that.
Well, the state says it could intervene if the district withheld Caitlin's transcript to get to college, but with diplomas, the buck stops with the district's school board. Michael Konopasek, News 9.
Something tells me we haven't heard the last of this one. Now, Caitlin...
Well, my friends, let me say this. To all of the members of that school board, all the pinheads who are punishing this girl for exercising her free speech and using the word hell, you can go to hell. Item from the Economic Collapse blog. For decades, our politicians have promised us that the free trade agenda would bring us greater prosperity than ever before. They insisted that merging our economy into the emerging one world economy would cause millions upon millions of new jobs to be added to the U.S. economy. Unfortunately, it was all a giant lie. Trading with other countries is not a bad thing as long as the level of trade is fairly equal on both sides. When trade becomes very unequal, the consequences can be absolutely catastrophic. If nothing is done about this, jobs are going to continue to pour out of high-wage countries like the United States and into low-wage countries on the other side of the globe. And big corporations are going to keep laughing all the way to the bank as unemployment in America gets even worse. The following are 22 stats that show how the emerging one-world economy is absolutely killing American workers. One professor has estimated that cutting the U.S. trade deficit in half would create 5 million more jobs in the United States. 2, the United States has a trade imbalance that's more than 7 times larger than any other nation on earth. 3, overall, the United States has run a trade deficit of more than $8 trillion with the rest of the globe since 1975. That $8 trillion could have gone to support U.S. businesses and pay the wages of U.S. workers. Federal, state, and local taxes would have been paid on that $8 trillion if it had stayed in the United States. This is one reason why our national debt is getting ready to cross the $16 trillion mark. 4, when NAFTA was passed in 1993, the United States had a trade surplus with Mexico of $1.6 billion. In 2010, we had a trade deficit with Mexico of $61.6 billion. 5, in 2001, American consumers spent $102 billion on products made in China. In 2011, American consumers spent $399 billion on products made in China. 6, the Chinese undervalue their currency at about 40% in order to gain a critical advantage over foreign competitors. This means that many Chinese companies are able to absolutely thrive while their competition in the United States goes out of business. 7, according to the New York Times, a Jeep Grand Cherokee that cost $27,490 in the U.S. cost about $85,000 in China thanks to all the tariffs. 8, the U.S. trade deficit with China during 2011 was $295.4 billion. That was the largest trade deficit that one nation has had with another nation in the history of the world. 9, back in 1985, our trade deficit with China was only about $6 million for the entire year. 10, U.S. consumers spend about $4 on goods and services from China for every $1 that Chinese consumers spend on goods and services from the United States. 11, the U.S. has actually lost an average of about 50,000 manufacturing jobs a month since China joined the World Trade Organization in 2011. 12, according to the Economic Policy Institute, America is losing about 500,000 jobs to China every single year. 13, the United States has lost more than 56,000 manufacturing facilities since 2001. 14, during 2010 alone, an average of 23 manufacturing facilities closed their doors in America every single day. 15, since the auto industry bailout, approximately 70% of all GM vehicles have been built outside the United States. 16, as I've written about previously, 95% of the jobs lost during the last recession were middle-class jobs. 17, according to Professor Alan Blinder of Princeton University, 40 million more U.S. jobs could be sent offshore over the next 2 decades if current trends continue. 18, the percentage of working-age Americans that are employed right now is actually smaller than it was at the end of the last recession. 19, the average duration of unemployment in the U.S. is nearly 3 times as long as it was back in the year 2000. 20, due in part to the globalization of the labor pool, only about 24% of all jobs in the U.S. are, quote, good jobs at this point. My friends, go to the Economic Collapse blog, read the last part of this column. It's especially important with an election coming up. When we come on back, we'll finish things up for the day. This is Real Truth.
The Lord brings the counsel of the nations to nothing. He makes the plans of the peoples of no effect. The counsel of the Lord stands forever, the plans of his heart to all generations. Blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord, the people he has chosen as his own inheritance. Psalm 33, verses 10 through 12.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just power from the consent of the governed. This is the America News Network. Whether you're in automotive, sporting goods, hardware, health, wellness, electrical, electronics, construction, carpet cleaning, legal, or animal care, and offer exceptional customer service and provide quality services or goods, you're honest, reliable, and professional. If you have a business, we have the customers. Let us put you in touch with our loyal, supportive, and dedicated listeners today. They're waiting to hear from you. It's inexpensive. It's effective. Call KHNC at 1-800-205-6245. The Beth Messiah Congregation invites you to come and experience a Messianic Roots biblically-based congregational fellowship as we observe God's Shabbat in Messiah Yeshua. Praise and worship services begin at 10:30 a.m., followed by an Oneg Shabbat meal mid-Rosh and fellowship. Beth Messiah Congregation is located at 8333 Acoma Way in North Denver. You can find out more information by calling 1-800-205-6245. Everyone's welcome, so join us this Shabbat. And Shabbat Shalom, good Sabbath.
Welcome back to Real Truth. Item from the Atlas Shrugs website. Hamburg, Germany authorities have signed a deal with the city's Muslim community groups guaranteeing Islamic holidays, school religion lessons, and burial rights. It's the first agreement of its kind in Germany. It is the first deal ever between the German state and its Muslim community, said Hamburg's center-left mayor Olaf Scholz, adding a signal that we're ready and willing to cooperate. Hamburg officials will declare Eid al-Adha festival, a sacrifice, Eid ul-Fitr, the end of Ramadan, and the day of Ashura, that's the day of mourning, officially recognized holidays. Muslim and Alevi workers will be allowed to take these days off, and their children will be allowed to stay out of school if they wish. The deal also promises Islamic communities more say in how religious lessons in schools are formed. As one commenter pointed out, quote, fools rush in where angels fear to go. Germany has gotten itself in a permanent headache in more ways than one. The dates of these holidays are always disputed and never fall on the same date every year. It also depends on the sighting of the moon by mullahs. Even their prayer times differ just as does their fasting time, unquote. My friends, I guess Germany just has a liking for all things that smell of Nazism. Item from the Daily Mail. Zimbabwe's policy of seizing white-owned farms and handing them over to black workers has cost the country £7 billion in lost production over the past decade, it's been claimed. The extent of the agricultural collapse in the former British colony, once famed as the breadbasket of Africa, emerged hours after the UN said it needs $500 million in humanitarian aid this year. Zimbabwe's President Robert Mugabe and his family now own 39 farms which had been seized from their former white owners, said the Commercial Farmers Union in Harare, the country's capital. Hundreds more have been stolen from experienced white farmers and given to black workers and veterans of the War of Independence, many of whom have little knowledge of farming, unquote. My friends, racism is always wrong no matter what direction it's going into. Plus, government is always stupid. Taking farms away from farmers and giving them to non-farmers is exactly what a brainless, bloated, bureaucratic government does, whether it's Zimbabwe or America. item from Michael Kelly at the Business Insider. A former U.S. Marine who accused the government of lying about 9/11 and spoke of the revolution on Facebook was detained on Friday night, reports Renee Nall of Gather. According to Brandon Raub's mother, authorities from the FBI, Secret Service, and Chesterfield County Police Department came to their door, questioned Raub about his Facebook posts, which are critical of the official story regarding 9/11 and refer to starting a revolution, then handcuffed him and placed him in a Chesterfield PD squad car before taking him directly to John Randolph Psychiatric Hospital in Hopewell, Virginia. Unquote. My friends, welcome to the future. You heard me. Welcome to the future. If someone complains about something you posted, and believe me, there's always someone who'll complain, authorities will now act on it, come to your door, question you, and in all likelihood either fine you or imprison you. Don't think that's the wave of the future? Ask Brandon Raub what he thinks. Ask his mother. There have been additions to the story. Do this, my friends. Go on YouTube. Punch in the name Brandon Raub. That's R-A-U-B. First name Brandon. Find out what's going on. Keep up with this. Call the authorities and tell them the right of free speech has not gone away. It thrives, it survives, and we insist upon it. More Real Truth in 23 hours. I will see you then, my friends. Hasta luego.